So, I guess I should start from the beginning because everyone's acting like I'm some kind of monster when really Tyler's the one who went completely psycho. But whatever. Here's what actually happened. 2.5 years ago, I matched with Tyler on this dating app. I was living in this tiny studio apartment with peeling wallpaper and a radiator that sounded like someone was hitting it with a wrench every morning at 6 a.m. My phone screen was already cracked then, this spiderweb pattern across the bottom left corner that I kept meaning to get fixed but never did. And Tyler seemed so mature and stable, you know? Like he had his life together, which was honestly really attractive after dating all these guys who lived with 3 roommates and ate cereal for dinner. We met at that Starbucks on 5th Street, the one where the AC is always blasting so hard you need a jacket in July. Tyler was already there when I walked in, sitting at one of those wobbly tables by the window, and he stood up when he saw me, which was sweet. He was wearing this navy button-down that was perfectly ironed, and his hair looked like he'd just gotten it cut. I ordered some complicated drink with extra shots because I was nervous, and he just got black coffee, which should have been my first clue that he was kind of boring. But he was so attentive, asking all these questions about my job and my family, and when I told him about my student loans and how I was basically living off ramen noodles, he didn't judge me or anything. He just nodded and said he understood how tough it was starting out. The coffee was burnt, that Starbucks dark roast that tastes like charcoal, but I kept drinking it because I didn't want the date to end. After about 6 months of dating, Tyler started talking about moving in together. I was hesitant at first because my studio was cheap, even if the bathroom door didn't lock properly, and the neighbors upstairs sounded like they were moving furniture at midnight every night. But Tyler found this really nice apartment in a better neighborhood, 2 bedrooms with actual closet space and a kitchen island. When I saw the rent price, I was like, there's no way I can afford half of this. But Tyler just waved me off and said he'd handle it. I should have realized then that he was the controlling type. But honestly, I was just excited to finally live somewhere that didn't smell like the Indian restaurant downstairs. We moved in on a Saturday in October, and Tyler had this whole system with labeled boxes and color-coded tape. I just threw my stuff in garbage bags and hoped for the best. He bought me a new iPhone for my birthday that month, still in the box when we unpacked, and I remember thinking this was finally the life I deserved. For the first year of living together, everything was pretty good. Tyler paid the rent without complaining, kept the fridge stocked, and bought me little presents for no reason. But after a while, it got kind of boring. He had this routine where he'd wake up at 6:30 every morning and make the exact same breakfast. Oatmeal with blueberries and cinnamon, measured out like he was conducting some kind of science experiment. The coffee maker would make this annoying, gurgling sound, and there was always this sticky spot on the counter that he'd wipe around but never actually clean properly. I started feeling restless, you know? Like I'm 26, I shouldn't have to live like I'm married to my dad or whatever. Tyler would come home from work and want to watch Netflix and do meal prep for the week. He'd lecture me about saving money every time I bought coffee or got my nails done. It was like dating an accountant, which technically he kind of was. So maybe 6 months ago, I downloaded a few dating apps. Just to see what was out there, you know? It wasn't like I was planning to cheat or anything. I was just bored and wanted some excitement. Some attention from guys who didn't ask me about my retirement savings plan or remind me to meal prep on Sundays. I'd scroll through profiles when Tyler was at work, sitting on our unmade bed with my laptop balanced on my knees. His side was always perfectly made with hospital corners, while mine looked like a tornado hit it. I'd drink coffee from this mug that had a brown ring stain inside and tell myself it was just harmless flirting, like window shopping but for guys. The conversations were fun and flirty, way different from Tyler asking me if I'd paid the electric bill or reminding me about some boring dinner with his coworkers. These guys would send me good morning texts and tell me I was beautiful and ask about my day like they actually cared. It felt good to feel wanted again, instead of like some kind of financial burden. Then 3 months ago, Tyler asked me to help his friend Pierce with his dating profile. Pierce had just moved here for work and was super introverted and awkward. Tyler thought I'd be good at it since I was, quote-unquote, good with social media. We met up at this coffee shop with wobbly tables, and Pierce was even more nervous in person than I expected. He kept sweating through his shirt and fidgeting with his phone case, which was one of those clear ones that had turned yellow around the edges. Tyler had me help Pierce take some better photos and rewrite his bio to sound more confident. Pierce was actually kind of cute in a shy way, with these dark eyes and this smile that made him look younger. But he seemed so inexperienced with dating apps, asking all these questions about how to message girls and what to say. I acted like I was just giving advice from what I'd observed, not mentioning that I'd been actively using the apps myself. We spent like 2 hours going through profiles, and I was trying to seem helpful while internally panicking that Pierce might see my profile. But he was so focused on finding matches for himself that he didn't really pay attention to the other profiles we scrolled past. Tyler showed up toward the end with coffee for everyone, and I could tell he was proud of me for being such a good friend and helping out. A few days later, I was home alone scrolling through my messages when I got a notification that I'd matched with someone new. The profile picture was this really good photo of a guy at the beach. Sunglasses on, kind of artistic lighting. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. His name was listed as P, and his bio was actually pretty funny and well written, nothing like the usual gym selfies and fish pictures. I was excited because this guy seemed different from the usual matches. More mature, better photos, actually literate. So I messaged him first, something flirty about his beach photo. He responded pretty quickly, and we started this really fun conversation. He was asking about my interests and making jokes that actually made me laugh out loud. It felt so refreshing compared to Tyler's serious discussions about our 5-year plan or whatever. We texted back and forth for days, and the conversations got progressively more flirty and sexual. He seemed to really get my sense of humor, and he was saying all the right things about how beautiful I was and how much he wanted to meet me. I'd text him from all over the apartment, from the bathroom while Tyler was showering, from the kitchen counter while Tyler was doing dishes, charging my phone with this frayed cable that barely worked anymore. Tyler had been acting kind of distant lately anyway, coming home from work and barely acknowledging me. He'd sit at his laptop for hours with the screen turned away, so I couldn't see what he was doing. His coffee would get cold while he typed, and that flickering hallway light we kept meaning to fix was driving me crazy. I figured he was just stressed about work or something, but it made me feel even more justified about talking to other guys. P suggested we meet up after about a week of texting, and I was nervous but excited. We decided on this chain restaurant near the mall, nothing too fancy but public enough to be safe. I got there first and grabbed a booth, one of those with ripped vinyl where you could see the yellow foam underneath. The menu was sticky with grease on the laminated plastic, and the fluorescent lights made everyone look washed out and sickly. When P walked in, I recognized him immediately, and my heart basically stopped. It was Pierce. Tyler's friend Pierce, who I'd just helped with his dating profile. He looked just as shocked to see me, his face going red and sweaty. We both just sat there for a minute, staring at each other like deer in headlights. I tried to play it off, laughing and saying what a crazy coincidence it was. Pierce seemed really nervous and kept wiping his palms on his jeans. I suggested maybe we should just pretend this never happened, but he said we were already here, so why not just have dinner as friends? The whole thing felt surreal and awkward, but also kind of exciting in a forbidden way. Pierce was completely different in person than he'd been over text. He seemed nervous and kept checking his phone, and his conversation was stilted and awkward. Nothing like the confident, funny guy I'd been messaging with. I started wondering if maybe he'd had help writing those messages, but that seemed paranoid. Maybe he was just nervous about the weird situation we'd found ourselves in. We didn't do anything physical that night, just talked and ate mediocre pasta while trying to navigate this bizarre coincidence. But there was definitely chemistry there. this tension that hadn't existed when we'd met as just friends. When we left, Pierce suggested maybe we could hang out again sometime. Just as friends, of course. I said sure, even though I knew it was probably a bad idea. Over the next few weeks, Tyler became even more distant and cold. He stopped stocking the fridge like he usually did, and I found myself asking my parents for money to buy groceries. He'd sleep on the very edge of his side of the bed, always perfectly made in the morning, while my side looked like a disaster zone. He barely touched me or showed any affection, and when I tried to talk to him about it, he'd just shrug and say he was tired from work. I started texting Pierce more, complaining about how Tyler was treating me and how lonely I felt. Pierce was sympathetic and understanding, telling me I deserved better and that Tyler was an idiot for not appreciating me. It felt good to have someone validate my feelings instead of making me feel like I was being dramatic. Pierce and I decided to meet up again, and this time it felt less like a coincidence and more like an actual date. We went to this dive bar where the stools were cold metal that went right through your jeans, and I could hear the couple at the next table chewing their food, which was gross. Pierce seemed more confident this time, more like the guy I'd been texting with. He bought me drinks and complimented my outfit and made me laugh. We talked about how unhappy I was with Tyler, how he'd become controlling and boring and emotionally unavailable. Pierce listened and nodded and said all the right things about how I deserved someone who appreciated me. By the end of the night, we were sitting really close, and when he offered to walk me to my car, I knew something was going to happen. We ended up going to this cheap motel instead. One of those places with thin walls and stained carpet and air conditioning that was way too loud. I knew it was wrong, but Tyler had been treating me like a roommate instead of a girlfriend. And Pierce made me feel alive again. Like I was desirable and interesting instead of just some financial burden. Pierce seemed nervous again once we got to the room, fumbling with his phone and setting it down on the nightstand in a weird way. But I was feeling reckless and excited, like I was finally doing something for myself instead of just going along with Tyler's boring routine. It felt like rebellion, like taking back control of my own life. Afterwards, I felt guilty, but also exhilarated, like I'd been sleepwalking for months and finally woke up. Pierce was sweet and attentive, nothing like Tyler's recent coldness. We talked for hours about everything and nothing, and when I finally went home, Tyler was already asleep on his perfect side of the bed. This went on for a couple of months. I'd meet up with Pierce when Tyler was at work or out with friends. Tyler continued being distant and weird, and I continued feeling just justified about seeking attention elsewhere. The bills started piling up on the kitchen counter because Tyler wasn't paying them like he usually did, but when I asked him about it, he'd just say money was tight and we needed to cut back. Then one Tuesday, I came home from work to find the apartment completely empty. And I mean completely. Tyler had taken everything, the furniture, the dishes, even the stupid decorative pillows I'd bought for the couch. There were just these weird dents in the carpet where everything used to be, and the whole place smelled like someone had burned popcorn. The neighbor's dog was barking through the wall, and I could hear my own voice echoing in the empty space. There was a single note on the kitchen counter, written in Tyler's neat handwriting. It just said he was done, and that I was out. No explanation, no discussion, nothing. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I was standing there in this empty apartment, holding this note, and my phone was buzzing constantly, but the cracked screen made it hard to see who was calling. I finally managed to see that my mom had called me like 15 times, which was weird because she usually just texted. When I called her back, she was crying and asking me how I could do this to the family. I had no idea what she was talking about until she said she'd seen the photos. Apparently, Tyler had sent explicit pictures of me and Pierce to my entire family group chat. Pictures I didn't even know existed from that motel room. My parents, my siblings, even my grandmother were in that chat. Everyone I cared about had seen me in the most compromising, humiliating way possible. My phone kept buzzing with shocked reactions and disappointed messages. I was sitting in my car outside the apartment building, engine running, looking at the family photos on my dashboard and trying to process what was happening. My phone was at like 3% battery, and I couldn't find my car charger anywhere. Everything felt surreal and nightmarish. Then I started getting calls from random numbers, and when I let them go to voicemail, I heard Tyler's voice. He'd somehow changed my voicemail message to say, "Hey, this is Brooke. I can't come to the phone right now because I'm too busy sleeping with guys I met on a dating app and cheating on my boyfriend." Every single person who called me heard that message. My boss, my friends, random telemarketers, everyone. I tried to change it back, but I couldn't remember my voicemail password, and Tyler had probably changed that too. For a whole week, anyone who called me got this humiliating message about my cheating. I was hiding in bathroom stalls at work, trying to figure out how to fix my voicemail while my phone rang constantly. People were staring at me and whispering, and I knew word was spreading about what had happened. I felt like I was wearing a scarlet letter or something. Finally, Tyler called me directly. I was back in my childhood bedroom by then, surrounded by faded posters and tissues scattered everywhere from crying. My parents were hovering outside the door, probably listening to every word. Tyler was cold and businesslike, like he was conducting a meeting. He said I had exactly 24 hours to return every gift he'd ever bought me, including the iPhone I was talking to him on. When I started to protest, he said he had video evidence of me and Pierce together, recorded without my knowledge, and if I didn't cooperate, he'd send it to my workplace. I completely lost it then, crying and screaming at him about how dramatic and controlling he was being. I called him every name I could think of, telling him he was a psychopath and that what he'd done was illegal and insane. But he just calmly repeated his demands and hung up. I had no choice but to return everything. The iPhone, the jewelry, even clothes he'd bought me. I had to borrow my mom's old flip phone just to have something to use. Tyler took everything and then blocked me on every platform imaginable. His family and friends blocked me too. Like I was some kind of dangerous criminal. Now I'm living in this tiny apartment with walls so thin I can hear my neighbors watching TV. The carpet is this gross brown color with stains I don't want to think about, and there's only one window that faces a brick wall. I'm eating ramen noodles for dinner most nights and sleeping on a mattress on the floor because I can't afford real furniture. My phone screen is cracked worse than before, spiderweb cracks spreading across the whole thing, and I can't afford to get it fixed. The battery dies constantly, and I'm using this ancient charger my mom found in a drawer somewhere. Sometimes I catch myself picking at my chipped nail polish, thinking about how everything went so wrong so fast. The worst part is how everyone acts like Tyler's some kind of hero for what he did. Like sending explicit photos to my entire family and humiliating me publicly was justified because I made a mistake. Nobody wants to hear my side of the story about how lonely and neglected I felt, about how Tyler had basically checked out of our relationship months before anything happened with Pierce. Pierce completely ghosted me after everything came out. I tried texting him from my mom's phone, but he never responded. Apparently, Tyler had been controlling our whole relationship from the beginning, using Pierce's phone to text me and manipulating both of us, which is honestly even more psychotic than I originally thought. My family barely speaks to me now. They say they're disappointed and that they need time to process what happened. My mom changes the subject whenever I try to explain my side of things. My dad won't even look at me when I visit. It's like I committed murder instead of just having a relationship that didn't work out. I've tried dating again, but it's hard when you're living in a place like this and can barely afford to go out for coffee. The guys I meet on apps now are nothing like Tyler or even Pierce. They're immature and broke and living with roommates, just like I was before Tyler came along and temporarily upgraded my life. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Tyler had just talked to me about our problems instead of orchestrating this elaborate revenge scheme. Like, if he'd put half the energy into fixing our relationship that he put into destroying my life, maybe things could have been different. But apparently he'd rather play detective and ruin me completely than just have an adult conversation. The crazy thing is, I really did love Tyler. Yes, I made mistakes, and maybe I should have broken up with him before getting involved with Pierce. But what he did to me was so much worse than anything I did to him. He destroyed my relationships with my family, humiliated me publicly, and left me basically homeless and broke. How is that proportional to what I did? I keep thinking about that morning routine he had, measuring out his oats like it was the most important thing in the world. How he'd iron his shirts the night before and lay them out perfectly. How organized and methodical he was about everything. I should have realized that someone that controlling would never just let me go quietly. Now I'm stuck in this mess, trying to rebuild my life from basically nothing. My credit's shot because I couldn't pay the rent after Tyler left. My family relationships are destroyed. My work situation is awkward because everyone knows what happened. And Tyler gets to move on like nothing happened, probably telling everyone what a victim he is. I've been thinking about reaching out to him, maybe trying to have a real conversation about what went wrong. But he's made it pretty clear that he never wants to see or hear from me again. His friends act like I'm some kind of monster, and his family treats me like I never existed. 2.5 years of my life just erased. The apartment gets really quiet at night, just the sound of traffic outside and my upstairs neighbor moving around. Sometimes I can hear couples fighting through the walls, and it reminds me of how Tyler and I never really fought until the very end. We just kind of drifted apart, and instead of dealing with it like adults, everything exploded in the most dramatic way possible. I know I'm not perfect, and maybe I made some bad choices. But everyone acts like Tyler's completely innocent in all this. Like he didn't manipulate the entire situation from the beginning. Like he didn't orchestrate Pierce and me getting together just so he could destroy my life more thoroughly. That's not the behavior of a normal, healthy person. But whatever. I guess this is my life now. Cracked phone, ramen dinners, and a mattress on the floor. All because I was looking for some excitement and attention from someone who actually seemed to care about me. All because Tyler decided that revenge was more important than just ending our relationship like a mature adult. Sometimes I scroll through social media on my terrible phone and see pictures of my family at gatherings I'm not invited to anymore. Or I see mutual friends hanging out with Tyler like nothing happened. It's like I've been erased from my own life. All because everyone thinks Tyler's the victim, and I'm the villain. I keep waiting for people to realize how crazy and controlling Tyler actually is. But apparently everyone thinks his behavior was justified. Like completely destroying someone's life is a reasonable response to relationship problems. Like I'm the only one who did anything wrong in this whole mess. The worst part is the loneliness. Like, yes, I was lonely in my relationship with Tyler, but at least I had a relationship. At least I had family dinners and friend groups and a nice place to live. Now I have basically nothing, all because I made one mistake, and Tyler decided to make me pay for it forever. I guess that's just how it goes sometimes. You think you know someone, you build a life with them, and then they show you who they really are when things get difficult. Tyler showed me he's the kind of person who would rather destroy someone completely than just walk away. And apparently, everyone thinks that makes him the good guy in this story.